It's not rocket science. These people were butchered. You can't slice bacon with a baseball bat.
In cyberspace, I can walk. I can run. I can dance, baby.
Hey, Quinlan, I got a serious craving for a capicola hoagie from Fat Al's. Now, if you're in the neighborhood, could you get me one? Now, hold it on the hot peppers. My ulcer is killing me. Here.
Wait, there are some things that need to be explained. Video games have gone through many evolutions since their inception, from Pong to Pac-Man, 2D to 3D environments, cartridges to digital downloads. But not every evolutionary step was a lasting one. Few were as fascinating or short-lived as full-motion video, or FMV games. FMV started gaining popularity in the early 90s, spurred by the arrival of CD-ROMs on PC and consoles. Suddenly, developers had hundreds of megabytes to work with instead of a few, making it possible to include digitalized videos. And they weren't just thinking of bringing a cinematic experience to players' personal computers. The actors themselves were also selling points. With booming video game sales in the early 90s after a relatively modest growth in the 80s, video game companies had the funds to hire many famous Hollywood stars. Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell are in Wing Commander 3, John Hurt in Privateer 2: The Darkening. Even Clive Owen was in that before starring in major films. I'm guessing you know most of those actors, but have never heard of those games. Despite FMV's brief boom, the medium fell out of favor almost as quickly as it had risen for a couple of reasons. Firstly, gameplay wasn't the main focus. Many FMV games were essentially movies interrupted by puzzles or QuickTime events. By 1996, 3D graphics had improved rapidly, with titles like Quake and Tomb Raider showing off fully 3D worlds that the players could explore freely instead of being confined to pre-rendered areas. Video compression issues were prevalent as well. CD-ROMs did have a lot of memory for the time, but could not hold hours of high-quality video, leading to a heavily compressed and low-resolution experience. Production costs also ballooned, since studios were paying not just for the video game side of the project, but the sets, actors, directors, and post-production of the live video. The writing was on the wall, yet that did not stop Take-Two Interactive, yes, that Take-Two, from developing and producing the game we're talking about today, Ripper.
Dear boss, have you seen my work this morning yet? Your stories make the cops seem so confident. None of you know how I do it. You never will. You shouldn't let your girlfriend do your work for you. She is close to me, and I'm not laughing.
Ripper is set in a dystopian cyberpunk New York City in the year 2040. The player assumes the role of Jake Quinlan, a reporter for the Virtual Herald investigating a spate of murders reminiscent of the serial killer Jack the Ripper. The game features everything you want from a cyberpunk noir detective story: mysterious killings, a crooked cop, underground cyberspace hackers, zany visuals, and B-movie dialogue.
Here's my stuff. I'm going into interrogation, Brannon. You know, little police work. How's the coffee, Sarge? Nice and hot.
Every factor that brought FMV down as a medium somehow works for Ripper. It features an all-star cast with Christopher Walken as Detective Vincent Magnotta, Karen Allen as Dr. Claire Burden, John Rhys-Davies as Viggo Hammond, and even a very young Paul Giamatti, just to name a few. This would have been impressive for a Hollywood film, let alone a CD-ROM adventure game in 1996. This was all possible by the insane budget Ripper boasted at the time, about $4 million compared to the average of $2 million from other major studios at the time of release. What money that wasn't being spent on the cast went to the design. The actors worked in front of a blue screen where 3D artists would overlay live composites of the current scene's background. Even though it looks clunky for today's standards, there's still a brilliance in how exploring the environment felt. Whether it was the hospital's gritty yet futuristic morgue, the dark and brooding police station, or the eerie safe house of a disturbed cyber hacker, each had a distinctive atmosphere and aesthetic. Almost every level had a puzzle within it or linked with another section, so it always felt like you were gaining ground in the case. Some puzzles are straightforward, some are oddly difficult, and then there's the chip and hieroglyphics puzzles, which, Jesus Christ, I wanted to cut my head open.
Self-defense, man. I mean, why'd you hit me, Quinlan? What are you, stupid?
I don't know if you remember a TV show called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I think there should be a niche version called Are You Smarter Than a 90's point-and-click puzzle game? Because seriously, there were times playing where figuring out the solution had me audibly going, how the hell would I have known this? But the frustration from puzzles rarely stopped my excitement playing the game, or should I say, experiencing the game. If you like old schlocky B-movies that have a genuinely good story, you're in the right place.
Fired me for eating in the morgue. They said I wasn't maintaining a sterile environment or something. I mean, it's total bullshit. I mean, what do they care if there's a few crumbs or ashes around?
The average movie script is around 120 pages. Ripper's was 317. There were so many variations of dialogue for the actors to perform because the game had 4 endings. Depending on what evidence you collect and who you talk with during the first 2 acts, the killer could be different in each playthrough. One of the aspects of the script I wasn't expecting is that it acts as a time capsule for how people thought the future would look like back in 1996, 30 years ago. They get some stuff right. Phone calls and evidence go through your WAC, a wireless access console that is surprisingly similar to the iPhone, and where we get this fantastic meme. Virtual reality is integral to the story, and the tech the characters used looks like an Oculus Rift, though their depiction of what virtual reality would look like was a bit off.
Exit cyberspace.
Yeah, this is the internet in 2040, beware. Regardless, for an abandonware game, Ripper deserves a lot of credit for what it pulled off in 1996, and what it means through today's lens. This isn't a normal retrospective, it'll be a little different. With that in mind, I'd like to share with you what makes this game a forgotten classic and a wildly good murder mystery. Oh, we can't listen to that. Take-Two licensed Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper and got their money's worth. Not only is it used a lot in the game, hell, there's even a puzzle based on the lyrics, they also played it during production breaks on set. Now, I tried everything on DOSBox to get a better video quality, but I couldn't find a fix for the compression issues. So if you see pixels or screen tearing, that's why.
My editor, Ben Dodds, called me at 3 a.m. to give me the news. It was a woman this time. The 3rd victim. Of all the reporters in the city, the Ripper picked me to write to. I knew that another mad letter to the city was soon to come, and I would run it on the front page of the Virtual Herald. I would let the world know the Ripper had killed again.
The murder scene acts as the player's tutorial, teaching us how to move around the room, talk with the characters, and identify evidence. The game has 3 unspoken rules. Click everything you can interact with, exhaust every dialogue option with characters, and check back on areas even if you think you found everything you need. The first person Quinlan talks to is Carl Stasiak, a forensic photographer who's been on the force for 22 years. He says that this victim is identical to the last 2 Ripper murders, with precise cuts to the body and the organs eviscerated, but the police can't determine the murder weapon.
You'd think I'd be used to seeing things like this by now, but I'm not. Whoever did this is beyond madness. It's pure evil.
Then we get to talk with Vincent Magnotta, and I wish I could play every line Christopher Walken has because he steals the show.
Same MO as the others?
You got it. Look around you, asshole. If anything, this is more gruesome than the other 2. Hell of a lot more splatter.
You have any clues?
No sign of forced entry, nothing's disturbed. 2 sets of prints, hers and her mother's. The only thing not where it should be is this woman's insides.
But what about witnesses? I mean, this guy must have been a bloody mess, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's Greenwich Village. Somebody must have seen him.
As far as I know, he left us with 1 witness, and she's feeling a little fragmented at the moment. This guy is unfucking believable.
The only real information we get out of Magnotta is that the victim's name was Renee Stein. Magnotta doesn't trust Quinlan after he published the Ripper's notes in the Virtual Herald before informing the police, so when trying to question him about any other possible links to previous murders or clues in the room, we get zilch.
You got any mail lately? Maybe a little something from your pen pal?
He writes after the fact, not before. You should know that, Magnotta. I wouldn't hold out on you.
Of course not. You've been very good about sharing what you know with me and several million other people. I should have busted you when you ran that first letter without letting us know about it.
But there's something off about Magnotta as Quinlan questions why he's holding one of Stein's mugs, causing him to throw it on the ground, breaking it into pieces. This leads us to our first puzzle, and oh boy, if I had trouble doing this, I didn't even want to think about what was coming. There are some guides online that were helpful when I got stuck and were a lot cheaper than the actual manual, going for $500 on Amazon. With the mug pieced back together, the word Salisbury is revealed. Our first clue. Quinlan gets FaceTimed by his assistant Catherine Powell, and it's heavily insinuated they're more than just work buddies.
Now talk to me, what's going on?
I have to go, trust me.
Who's in charge here?
Well, after last night, I'd say that I am.
It seems Catherine has been doing her own reporting on the Ripper, saying something big might have come up and to meet her at the newsroom. But she's not there when we arrive. Our editor, Ben Dobbs, only saw her earlier that day leaving in a hurry, and while waiting, Quinlan receives a message from the Ripper.
She's my next job. She gets it today. The story's all yours. Yours truly, Ripper.
Catherine.
Quinlan, where you going? Quinlan! Quinlan!
The Ripper's communications were always unsettling, and kind of reminded me of the villain in the Scooby-Doo movie Cyber Chase.
Welcome to Level 2 game players, where things get a little tougher.
The whole ambiance works perfectly with the creepy green cyberface, unhinged dialogue, and voice modulation. With the Ripper's intent clear, Quinlan finds Catherine in her apartment, but before he can get any information, she passes out and the first act commences.
The good news was Catherine wasn't dead. The bad news was that she was in a coma deeper than anyone thought possible. The ever-helpful Detective Magnotta had her brought to the Tribeca Center for Cyber Studies, also known as the Metacog. Meanwhile, I stopped off at the police station to see a few sources and try to retrieve Catherine's portable whack. Hopefully, she'll have left me a message.
At the police station, Sergeant Brannon mentions that Catherine had been around multiple times, asking questions about the Ripper case to Quinlan's surprise. Remember, Catherine was his assistant and lover, but never told him that she was also investigating the murders secretly. We can also ask Brannon about Magnotta's odd behavior and tampering with evidence, but it does seem like that's normal for him.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that he intentionally destroyed a piece of evidence.
It won't be the first time.
Well, he's done it before?
Yeah, he hides it, he destroys it, he withholds it, you name it.
And this is common knowledge.
Yeah, he's like king shit at a bounty collecting, and the chief gets a piece of it. I mean, what are you gonna do? You know how this place works.
Doubling down on Magnotta's crookedness, the next lead is Catherine's whack, which should be in evidence, but the restaurant owner from The Sopranos, yeah, this game has a deep cast, tells Quinlan that Magnotta took it before it could get processed.
And how long is this gonna go on, huh?
For the rest of your life. When I'm 80 years old, I'm gonna come in here and tell you to shine my shoes, and you're gonna jump and do it, asshole. So why don't you just go and get the evidence in the Powell case and be quick about it, or I'm gonna make you kiss my ass.
You stop moving like a fucking turtle?
The last area of the police station to explore for now is Magnotta's office. On his desk you can find two documents, one about a prominent cyberspace architect Hamilton Wofford being shot in the head, and the other about gang violence in Soho.
Looking for something, Quinlan?
No, I just need to ask a few questions.
Because if I find out you're going through my stuff, I'll be glad to give you 72 hours on the tombs for tampering with an investigation.
Sling your shit at someone else, Magnotta. It's not my fault you can't catch this guy.
No, we'll see.
Magnotta isn't too pleased with us being in his office, but confirms he sent Catherine to a Dr. Burden, one of the top scientists that deal with what the game calls flatliners. You can confront him about the missing whack, but Magnotta deflects, saying it's not really missing if he has it, which I guess is technically correct, but something feels fishy.
The pile of bodies is getting bigger. I got crazies coming out the woodwork to confess. This Ripper's been spotted more times than Elvis.
Quinlan's next stop is the medical center where Catherine is located. The overly flirtatious receptionist points us in the right direction, and we get a nice establishing shot of the facility. I don't know if my affinity for 90s graphics came from the old Fallout games, but there was just something so timeless about these visuals. Maybe it was the fact that Ripper takes place in 2040, yet there was enough distinctively older interiors that I could absolutely see still being around in New York City's far future. It's an interesting contrast to most modern cyberpunk games that have everything new and shiny.
What are you doing here?
My name's Jake Quinlan. I'm a friend of Catherine's.
Quinlan.
With Dr. Burden, she reveals whatever the Ripper did to Catherine has trapped her psyche, making memory withdrawal almost impossible for any data angel. Data angels are an awesome concept, a technology that can interface with someone's unconscious brain, extract memories from it, and even communicate with the subject if done properly. Obviously, this would help the investigation if Catherine had seen who attacked her, but Dr. Burden is hesitant about any operation at this time. She also suspects that unlike the other victims, Catherine survived because something or someone interrupted the Ripper's attack. This is where things start to get strange. Dr. Burden leaves the room, allowing Quinlan to question Dr. Cable, the second in command. Oh my god, it's a 30-year-old Paul Giamatti, but that's not the strange part. Dr. Cable informs us that Burden is not treating Catherine like a normal patient, blocking common rehabilitation treatments that wouldn't be invasive. This change in treatment only took place after they were able to retrieve a distorted visual of Catherine's attacker from her short-term memory. Unfortunately, due to the Ripper's damage to her psyche, it will take time to restore the image and unlikely without the Data Angel's intervention. Dr. Cable also mentions that Magnata and Burden had a huge fight when Catherine was brought in, but doesn't know what it was about.
I don't know what it is about this case. There's something here she's not telling us.
Next stop is downstairs in the hospital's morgue, where we're introduced to Vic Farley, the forensic pathologist. He's glorious. One of the biggest unknowns with every Ripper case is what weapon was used. Farley explains that he's run extensive tests on the blood splatter, body damage, and precision of wounds consistent with each victim, but the computer algorithm cannot determine any viable weapon pattern. When asked about Dr. Burden, Farley confirms her abilities as a doctor, but does hint that when faced with harder cases, like Catherine's, she requests help from an outside source. Joey Falconetti.
Also known by his old C-Space handle, Falconetti. Get it? Crazy guy. Likes looking at the bodies. I'm surprised she hasn't called him in yet to look at your friend.
What do you mean?
Well, he's the best there is on human-to-human decking. She usually calls him in on that kind of stuff, but not on the Ripper work.
Falconetti is apparently an expert in human-to-human cyberspace interaction, aka decking. For as skilled as Falconetti is, he's also elusive, mostly communicating through proxies like Gambit Nelson at the Café de Champ.
Duchamp.
Duchamp. Well, you can find him there.
Back in the newsroom, we discover a letter Catherine left on Quinlan's desk, saying that if anything happened to her, that her crystals would light the way. Oh great, she's a crystal person. On Catherine's personal desk, there's a calculator that works and a couple of contacts in her electronic Rolodex Quinlan makes note of. Then we get our first experience of the internet in 2040. Cyberspace looks like a fever dream of 90s PBS animated kids shows in purgatory. Within this creepy underworld setting, you can read the Virtual Herald's headlines, which kind of reminded me of the New York Post. Tabloid journalism is strong in the future, with teasers like Psychic Madam Wanda Gives Warning, or How I Made a Fortune Selling Bagels. But the main headlines are about the Ripper, which has the city on edge. You can also go to the virtual library where Renee Stein was seen right before her murder. After decoding the corrupted data from her book Withdrawal, it turns out that Stein had taken out a book on the original Jack the Ripper, which can't be a coincidence. There are now 3 leads: Catherine's apartment, Café de Champ,
Duchamp.
Right, and Catherine's contact for all things hackers, so Betty. First stop is the apartment. The puzzle here revolves around star signs and crystals. You can get Catherine's birthday from the card Quinlan left her. Google what star sign the 25th of February would be, because no way in hell I'd know that, and match the star sign formation with the crystals. Somehow doing that powers up a skull that points to 2 books. One on Jack the Ripper and one on horoscopes. Okay, you can't interact with the books now, so they must come back later in the plot. There's also this creepy cane with the name Dorset on it, but Quinlan doesn't know who that could be. Next stop is Soap Betty. What he actually does is a bit confusing.
Do what needs doing. I run a little B&E in the net, melt some ice, do a little handwriting analysis. Hey, I got my code for everything.
Soap fills us in that Catherine was investigating a possible connection between the 3 Ripper victims and wanting more knowledge on how to protect herself in cyberspace. Apparently, open source developing was becoming much more popular, leading to some strange applications.
Bizarre stuff.
Oh yeah, attack dogs, giant rats, minefields, monkey balls, you name it. I can't tell you how to prepare for that world, brother. You's on your own.
One of the nicer quality of life mechanics the game uses is the map of the city. For each act, it gives you locations that will progress the story. This makes figuring out where to go next much easier since the choices are limited rather than an open world concept. Seeing that the Wofford Cottage was accessible, I decided to go there to find out why Magnata had this case on his desk.
Who goes there? Murderer! Murderer!
Of the English language, maybe. I'm just a journalist.
Beware you. I've got weapons here that can render you helpless.
Relax, old timer. I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm just after some information.
You, sir, stand in my domain, and the question is, who are you?
That's Burgess Meredith, an acclaimed actor with 60 years of radio, television, and film credits. How they got him into this game is beyond me, and I believe this was his last performance in any media. Burgess plays Covington Wofford, the twin brother of the acclaimed cyberspace architect Hamilton Wofford, who had been shot and killed 2 months prior to the Ripper murders. Covington accuses the police force of being complicit in his brother's killing, insisting they were after information on what his brother was creating in cyberspace and taking most of his belongings forcibly. I don't know if it was the fact that Covington was becoming senile or he actually trusted Quinlan, but he hints that Hamilton's work was hidden within the cottage, so the hunt begins with puzzles galore. We got a rolling ball puzzle. We got a time zone puzzle. We got a coin cowboy castle puzzle. That's the kid's favorite. Completing each puzzle nets us a vacuum tube which plugs into Hamilton's work computer. With all 3 collected, we power on the machine and get the word Vulcan, which is the password to Hamilton's well. The best way I can describe wells in the game is that they're unique web addresses that have passwords, so anyone can find their location, but actually getting into them requires the passcode. Within Hamilton's well is a 3D model of Whitechapel, the area that the original Jack the Ripper killed his victims. Who he was building this for, we don't know yet, but I'm fairly certain it has something to do with the killings. Catherine's well is also accessible. Using the password horoscope gains us access to it. And wait, this game has combat? I must have blocked this out of sight when going through the game's options, but yes, there is a difficulty setting for combat, and yes, combat is as clunky as it looks. What are we even shooting at? After some failed attempts, the Flying Bone Pharaoh is defeated, and Quinlan absorbs Catherine's notes on the Ripper case. Unfortunately, it's all encrypted and needs a password to decrypt it, so I'm seeing a pattern here. The investigation leads us to Cafe de Champ and Gambit Nelson. Gambit and Falconetti go way back, starting off as business partners in some sea-space endeavor before Falconetti ripped him off and stole his money. Honestly, he doesn't seem that mad about the situation.
I haven't worked with Eddie since, but I keep an eye on him, so he doesn't pilfer any of my holdings.
He also explains that years ago, Falconetti downloaded his consciousness into cyberspace and hides his physical body, usually making the Falcon find you. Hearing all of this, I wondered how Dr. Burden had any connection to the cyberspace criminal. Even though Gambit doesn't know Falconetti's location, he does know where one of his goons, Twig, lives. But before taking the long journey to Hoboken, why not have a beer first?
You should try this one. It's called Viper Pills. Goes down real smooth. It's got some bite. On the house.
Now, that's New York hospitality. Twig is an odd fellow, but does elaborate on the limitations of decking and why Falconetti is considered a genius in the field. Turns out being in cyberspace for prolonged periods of time is not great for your mental health or well-being. Falconetti can surf cyberspace for days without interruption. The only caveat is that Twig needs to administer him drugs, which if you know any programmers or software developers, sounds about right. There's a metal door right behind Twig that you can interact with, but it's locked, and the only thing I could think of was going back to cyberspace. Falconetti's well is now displayed, and with the password Circus Maximus, which was said every 5 seconds in Twig's apartment, we get to meet the infamous coder.
Looking for Falconetti? Well, I think you got him.
What the fuck is going on here?
It's a 40 gigabyte virtual environment. Made it myself. Pretty impressive, huh? Think of it like a game room, and you're my favorite toy.
Is he the Ripper? Quinlan strikes a last-second deal with Falconetti. If we can prove ourselves in cyberspace, he'll hear us out on helping Catherine. I was worried that it would be some coding puzzle since we did acquire a processor, magazine, and soap store, but no, it's an on-rails shooting gallery. Quinlan needs to beat Joey's score by killing the bad guys. Literally, they're called bad, and not shoot the good guys. This was a bit difficult since discerning which was which got a lot more complicated when in darker areas. Also, this guy really has a thing for skeletons.
Boy, reckon you can fly with a falcon after all. How's about you and me back at the Hacienda?
Now you wouldn't be lying to me now, would you, Eddie? Because I've been to your house, and you weren't there.
And just because you can't see me doesn't mean I'm not there. Talk to Twig. He'll be expecting you.
With Twig's door unlocked, Quinlan and Falconetti meet face to face, and wow, now that's a contraption.
Lucky for you, I had to come up for air. Hey, Twig, you lazy piece of shit! What kind of cheap-ass nootropics you feed me? To barely keep up with the data transfer in there. No wonder I lost that fucking contest. All right, hotshot. What do you want?
Turns out Falconetti knows who Magnata is and isn't too fond of him. He also brushes off how he knows Dr. Burden, only saying that she has the hots for him, which I do not believe. When questioned about the Ripper, Falconetti seems to have a reverence for the serial killer's precision, even though he admits he can't figure out what weapon is actually being used.
Fucking guy's incredible. He gets in there, paints the room in blood like Jackson Pollock on crack, and gets out without a trace. And that's buzzing about this psycho.
Using the idea of pissing off Magnata as bait, Falconetti agrees to help Catherine, and thus starts Act 2.
I was beginning to think I was in a bad mystery novel where everyone did it. It was also beginning to look like I didn't know Catherine as well as I thought I did. The private sources, the research she'd been up to, and the secret meeting with the Ripper. And she never told me a thing.
Back at the hospital, Quinlan overhears Dr. Burden and Falconetti arguing over his arrival, and about how Magnata specifically brought Catherine to her, both thinking he's trying to pin the whole thing on either one of them. They do look guilty of something, and admit they've known Magnata for a long time, but when questioned on how, Burden says it's personal. With enough pressure from both Quinlan and Falconetti, Dr. Burden storms off to the gym, and the invasive procedure into Catherine's psyche can begin. Oh, it's another on-rails shooter. Defeating Catherine's defenses opens her mind, allowing us to upload her own previous locations, items, and data that was lost after the Ripper attack. This is with the hope that her psyche will regain strength and make the image of the Ripper clear enough to identify. But with her notes still not decrypted and her investigation still secretive, Quinlan will need to do some more digging before coming back. Before leaving the hospital, I wanted to check back in with Farley to see if he had any new information on the murder weapon, but he's replaced by this jabroni.
Excuse me.
Hey! What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. This place is off limits to unauthorized personnel.
I'm Jay Quinlan from the Virtual Herald. Who are you?
I'm Bob Epples, the new pathologist, and I'm not to speak with you, Mr. Quinlan.
Bob has taken over pathology and insists he's not supposed to talk with Quinlan at all. The only info he gives is that Farley was canned for talking a little too much, but doesn't actually know who fired him. The next clues were at the police station. Sergeant Brannon warns Quinlan that Magnata has been acting stranger than usual, taking officers off the Ripper case and requesting every file on Falconetti. He also adds that Magnata had a connection to the Wofford brothers, where he had hired Covington a couple of years ago to build a virtual reality shooting range for the police academy. Is he the Ripper? It doesn't help Magnata's case that we can watch his interrogation of a petty drug dealer that results in some classic police brutality. It does give us the opportunity to swipe his card he left at Brannon's desk and use it to get into the records office. I was expecting something on Falconetti, but instead we get Magnata's personal file, which for some reason wasn't downloadable on our WAC, and was hard to read on screen. After some time squinting at the document, there were a couple of things that stood out. The first interesting piece was that his tech rating was deemed to be the highest level. Maybe it was an ageist thing, but Magnata didn't strike me as tech savvy. The second piece that caught my eye was how many fatalities he was involved in. It was enough to have a separate file and name it Slayer. I have to admit, after reading the document, I was stumped on what to do next, and did look up that we had unknowingly found another clue. The word Scorpio. Of course, the constellation is the password for Catherine's notes, and within the first decrypted section, she hypothesizes that the Ripper is either Magnata, Burden, or Falconetti. She also mentions that Soap delivered a package that would help her learn more about the three suspects, but it's hidden within the other book in her apartment. We also get a possible motive for why she obfuscated her reporting from Quinlan, writing, if she could break the case herself, she would be rich after coming from a rough upbringing. And that's all for Catherine's notes for now, since the rest of the decryption is still being processed. We take the disk Soap gave Catherine and use it on the computer, which gives us an equation. The only item that has any connection to numbers is Catherine's calculator back in the newsroom, and behold, it's an eye and cigar ribbon? Turns out these are surveillance bugs for both Magnata and Burden's offices. I don't know if they just messed up with the color of the cigar ribbon, but I'm pretty sure a detective would notice that.
Magnata will never even notice the bug is there.
Burden's bug is less noticeable as we replace the skeleton's eye with our device and rummage around her things, finding a filled-out prescription notepad and a book on advanced notional modeling signed by author and NYU professor Lillian Ross Beck. With both bugs in place, a new location unlocks, Burden's gym. I guess after our interaction with her and Falconetti, she needed to burn off some steam on the treadmill.
Interested in weights, aerobics, racket sports. Personal tip. Start slow.
Thanks.
Quinlan has all the front desk ladies fawning over him. For some reason, the gym keeps records of their attendees accessible at the entrance. Looking up Burden's file reveals another twist. Burden and Falconetti were previously married.
So, you used to be married to Eddie. I mean, somehow I can't picture you two together.
Took you long enough, Quinlan. Biggest mistake of my life.
How long did it take to figure that out?
About 5 minutes. 6 months for the lawyers. 15 years to forget.
When questioned about Farley being dismissed, she seems genuinely surprised, so I don't think it was her who orchestrated that. Yet she is still reluctant to talk about her and Magnata's connection, but we're getting warmer. Visiting Professor Beck, Burden's former teacher whose signed book was in her office, Quinlan uncovers that Burden and Falconetti, while at NYU, founded a club called the Web Runners. The club focused on cutting-edge cyberspace coding and creating a variety of virtual video games that became the two's obsession. Decoding the college flyers reveals the hidden location of the current Web Runners hideout, and Quinlan is not messing around anymore.
I've been playing tag with a serial killer and ruining my shine by walking through his victims' guts. My girlfriend's in a coma, and the next time the Ripper kills, it could possibly be yours truly, so fuck your cartoons!
The current Web Runner is not overly helpful answering our questions about Burden, Falconetti, and Magnata, but does say to check the Runner's archive on the web. She does mention there are still pictures of the founders by the wall, and holy moly, the connection has been formed. Burden, Falconetti, and Magnata were all a part of the Web Runners years ago, so what happened in the interim? To find that out, we have to hack into the Runners archive, but holy shit, I was never good at visual puzzles. I kid you not, this maybe took an hour to finish and almost broke me mentally. The archive reveals a lot of major plot points. Starting with Burden's profile, we find out during her and Falconetti's wedding that a one Vincent Magnotta had publicly tried to stop the marriage from happening because he was in love with Burden. The next archive post was about a Josie Dorset, a webrunner for 3 years before she mysteriously died, leaving an ex-husband and teenage daughter, with the case still not being resolved after all these years. I swear her name sounded so familiar. Falconetti's profile talks about how after getting married to Burden, he was convicted of first-degree murder, but that ruling was overturned 2 years later because it was discovered that a police officer had falsified evidence. Lo and behold, it was Magnotta. No wonder why Joey hates him. Then there's Magnotta's profile. What a glorious attempt to de-age Christopher Walken, my god. Magnotta was second to Falconetti in terms of cyberspace expertise and Burden's affection. After being rejected by Burden, he left the webrunners to join the police force and plotted his revenge on Falconetti. Yet all of that information was more detailed to something already hinted at. It wasn't until the last 2 archive posts that my jaw started to drop, and I felt like the police detective in Usual Suspects. The second to last webrunner profile was on Sam Mendler. He was part of the club for 4 years before leaving due to immense public scrutiny over one of his games, Wolfinator. He decided to retire from gaming development and open up a dry cleaning business. Remember reading the headline of the Virtual Herald? One of the Ripper's victims was the owner of a laundromat. You might be saying, New York is a big city, it could have been a different person. But then the last profile is none other than Renee Stein. And now we have a true connection between all the victims and suspects. The Webrunner Club. Is Magnotta trying to finish the job on Falconetti and win back Dr. Burden? Is Falconetti looking for revenge and killing Magnotta's past friends and cohorts? Is Dr. Burden fed up with both of these men and her past? Well, let's find out. Quinlan gets a call on his whack by Stephanie Jordan, another web runner mentioned in the archive. She claims she's in danger from the Ripper and to meet at the runner's secret loft, but the Ripper was too fast. By the time we get there, Stephanie's body has been torn to shreds, leaving pools of blood on the ground and on the student web runner.
I paused the program and take my goggles off, and she was just there, dude. She was just all cut up, with her eyes open and looking at me. And fuck, I didn't do this shit, man. I didn't even see anybody leaving.
The student insists that she was fully decked in, thinking what was real blood splattering her was from the virtual reality game she was playing. Before leaving the crime scene, Magnotta FaceTimes Quinlan, insinuating that because we were the last person to talk to Stephanie before she died, we're now a suspect. That's some bullshit, but I did like the thought of an unreliable narrator, especially in a first-person point-and-click adventure game. My suspicions of Magnotta were raised even higher as we're informed he had Stephanie's body removed from the crime scene before forensics could do their work, and the photo of him, Falconetti, and Burden is now missing from the loft. But there are still 2 other suspects we can question. Quinlan follows the webrunner lead back to Burden and Falconetti. With the doctor, she opens up about how scared she was of Magnotta after the wedding incident, calling him crazy and obsessed. Out of the 3, I feel Burden is definitely not the Ripper. With Falconetti, he's a bit more detailed about his wedding experience.
You know the part where the judge says, anybody got anything to say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Magnotta was holding his peace, and he had a lot to say.
You mean he interrupted the ceremony?
Yeah. And after we threw him out of there, he turns up the party afterwards, like nothing happened. Walks up to Claire, asks her to dance. She looks at him. She looks at me. I say, get the fuck out of here! And he goes nuts. My wedding day. Took 4 guys to pull him off me. 5 guys to pull me off him. After that, nothing was ever right.
As I said before, my eyes were on Magnotta until a small line caught my ears.
You know, the Ripper struck again.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
You got her, huh? Who'd he whack?
Quinlan never mentioned that it was a woman, yet somehow Falconetti knew it was. Maybe he's smart enough to realize the Ripper's pattern of killing old webrunners, but that seemed too unforced. It's also odd that he denies ever knowing her until we make the connection to the club. With the information from the ex-lovers, Quinlan confronts Magnata about the whole shaboodle.
Why didn't you tell me about the web runners?
What are you talking about?
Your past. Your involvement with the web runners, the fact that you're an ace decker, the fact that you've known Burton and Falconetti for years. I mean, you're all connected. I'm supposed to think there's nothing to this?
If you're making an accusation, swear out a complaint.
Why? So you can lift some more evidence?
You're walking on thin ice, Quinlan. If it cracks, ain't nobody gonna hear you scream when you go under.
Magnata is right about one thing. He doesn't have to tell Quinlan anything if he doesn't want to. Our next stop is back with the new pathologist, asking him to see Stephanie's body, but to his surprise, she's not in the morgue. This begins one of the more unfortunate puzzles. First of all, the premise doesn't make sense. The pathologist explains that Stephanie's information should be on the computer behind him, but it hasn't worked since he got there, accusing Farley of tampering with it. So then how would the victim's information be on it if it hasn't worked in days? Secondly, this is the puzzle from hell. Using the manual from Soap's store about chip functionality, you'll need to logically place each chip in their corresponding spot while also passing the logic system that's given. It dawned on me after 30 minutes I could just pull up the manual on my second monitor rather than using the small text brief at the bottom, but I shudder to think about what it would have been like for original players. With the computer finally powered up, we uncover that Stephanie's body is in animal storage? What?
It doesn't make any sense. They just store monkeys down there for use in experiments. Why would she be there?
Where is this storage area?
Well, you just go through the door in the back of the morgue, but... Oh, shit! Mr. Quinlan, please leave before you get me fired.
Through the back door, you say, right?
Please, Mr. Quinlan, just leave me alone.
The game does a great job with spreading the distrust between Magnata, Burton, and Falconetti. There are multiple instances between the three where the player would think any one of them is the Ripper. Are those, like, real monkeys? I hope not. We confront another locked door, but this time we'll need a voice ID to open it. Quinlan isn't too up to date with recording technology, so off to Soap Betty.
You know anything about voice locks?
You mean you don't? Man, where you been? They're basically all the same, but if you're trying to bust into one, all you gotta do is get a sound sample of the owner's voice saying, "It's me, open up!"
Quinlan gets the recording of Dr. Burton, and we do some new age sound editing.
This is Dr. Burton. Open up.
Opening the secret door reveals that Burton was using an abandoned subway tunnel as a research lab of some sort. Not only does it have a monkey being used for some cybercognitive experiments, which make it sound like the Master from Fallout 1.
Touching! Cyber! Space! Brain!
Stephanie's corpse is just laying right outside the lab. What possible reason would Burton have to hide the last victim? Why was she doing secretive research? Did she lie to us about Farley? I mean, he would be the only person that would have seen her come and go. Before I could think about any of those topics, the Ripper gives us another call.
Dear boss, see what happens when you get too close. Someone dies. She knew me and had something to say. Now she's silent. I'm holding her tongue in my fingers right now, and it has nothing to say. It's dangerous to know me. You've looked into my eyes, and I've seen your fear. Yours truly, Ripper.
With every member of the Web Runners dead except for our three main suspects, I was starting to wonder if Quinlan might be next, but we're in too deep. More of Catherine's notes have been decrypted, mentioning she found one of Falconetti's secret web wells and has the passcode for it. Within the well, Quinlan finds notes describing where each Ripper murder has taken place. Next to the book are two letters, one sent to the Central News Agency in London by either Jack the Ripper himself in 1888 or by a prankster impersonating the serial killer. The other letter was another communication from 1888, which was sent to the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, mocking him by ending the letter with "catch me when you can," and apparently containing half a human kidney. Obviously, Falconetti is obsessed with Jack the Ripper. He even has the top hat and cloak in the background when you first warp in. But it's not hard evidence. Talking with Dr. Burden next, we question her about her secret lab, but I was a bit disappointed not getting a straight answer.
Hiding Stephanie Jordan's body in a subway tunnel. That's legitimate.
No comment.
It would make a great front-page story.
Last time, Quinlan, no comment.
Secret labs, mutilated animals, remains of Ripper victims.
That's enough.
Talking monkeys. You know, I never cited a monkey as a source.
Quinlan, I'd like to help. But scientists just don't release research information like this.
I am not jockeying you out of grant money here, Doctor. I am trying to find a murderer.
Maybe I am too.
It was also odd Quinlan is more concerned for some reason with the talking monkey and doesn't double down about Stephanie's body being hidden. You can tell Magnata about this, which he does seem interested in and says he'll check it out. Yet I had to laugh that the last couple of times we've talked with him, he's just reading a book.
What do I gotta do? Write fuck off in Braille on your forehead? Get out of here.
With a lot more information under our belt, we go back to Catherine's psyche and give her the information. Falconetti was right. Doing this has strengthened her mind, and the Ripper image has become clearer, but we'll need more as it's only at 51%. Surprisingly, our next whack call isn't from the Ripper, but from Farley, who says he has some important news and to meet him at the Café du Champ.
Duchamp. Yeah, just go there. I won't be there long.
Turns out he was fired for smoking cigarettes and leaving food around the morgue, which, yeah, I don't think you should be doing. But he insists the timing was intentional as he had a breakthrough with what weapon the Ripper was using. Farley found that every one of the victims had been decked in before their murder. Analyzing their cerebral tissue, he noticed all of them had small fragments of foreign code, meaning the Ripper found a way to hack into their body and program a pseudo self-destruct. I'm going to play the rest of the interaction out because the acting is perfect.
How come just the torso's exploded? Because the guy is a fucking artist. Oh! I mean, he can blow somebody's guts across a room or he can have them spill right out in front of him. The sliced torso is his signature, just like the original Jack the Ripper. But he's one-upped his namesake. He hasn't even had to be there.
Fuck, it's like the perfect crime. Killing from cyberspace, right?
Damned if I'm going in there again. Not without some protection. You know anybody who's got some illicit C-space code? I'm telling you, this guy is a genius. If he knows I'm onto something, I'm in trouble. Oh, Christ, my ulcer. I'm not built for this stress.
Vic, you gotta stop eating this shit. I mean, do you really think you were fired because of this? Vic!
Oh my God, Vic! Fuck!
Thus starts Act 3.
There's nothing like a guy blowing up on you to focus your attention. My life was in danger. Farley's murder coming the day after Jordan's showed me what happened to people who knew too much. I had to determine whether Burton, Magnata, or Falconetti was really the Ripper, and quick. And while I was at it, I had to find out what the hell Catherine had been up to. The fact that the Ripper could kill via cyberspace over time and distance meant that I had to crack this nut or I was a dead man. First, though, I had to keep my ass out of jail.
Quinlan and Magnata are throwing accusations at each other left and right in the interrogation room. Magnata is certified crazy as he cuts open his own head, saying that Quinlan hit him, but then lets us go. How would that have worked? Aren't there freaking cameras everywhere? Regardless, after being released, we visit Wofford's cottage, and I guess Jake got a gun from the police station even though he's their #1 suspect. It allows us to save Covington from a cloaked assailant by shooting the person in the shoulder. Covington finally trusts us enough and gives Quinlan a GameCube disc that contains his brother's AI persona. Before we interface with it, Gambit Nelson sends a message about how he missed something important in Falconetti's secret well, so back to cyberspace. There's another book now displayed with a list of knives Falconetti has purchased over the years, another letter from Jack the Ripper, presumably another puzzle, and a very damning page of rating his lays and affinity towards the chest. Yeah, not looking so good for the Falcon. Solving the book title puzzle, we discover a fascinating audio file from Falconetti. He's talking about his final notes as a game master for a game called The Ripper. How meta.
This is the final game. It began like any other.
He's listing out every web runner we've learned about as players during this session. The audio transitions to the VR game 15 years ago, where they're essentially role-playing in Whitechapel during Jack the Ripper's murder spree. But something goes wrong, as the murder in the game kills Josie Dorset in real life, causing chaos within the player group.
I've lost her. She's flatlined. Who was playing Mary Kelly?
It's Josie. She and I switched.
Who are you?
It's me, Claire.
No! Who the fuck did this? How did this happen? How could this have happened?
We never learned the answer to that question. The Ripper had claimed his hunting ground, and now those who played that game must live in fear of when the Ripper will next strike.
This makes sense why her death was never solved. The web runners were developing games and code far beyond what anyone had experienced at the time. The ability to kill someone virtually wouldn't have crossed any detective's mind, but now is essentially what the Ripper is doing. And the group was so tight-knit before the incident, no one would have said anything. It also gives us a plausible reason why the web runners went their separate ways, since none of them would be able to trust the other, especially Dr. Burden, since Josie and her had switched characters without telling anyone, meaning the killer mistook Josie for Claire. A new area is unlocked after this revelation, and it's Magnata's apartment. Breaking into the dingy dwelling, we find Catherine's whack, the one that he stole from evidence. Her notes confirm that the web runners created Ripper the game, and surmises that the secret to who the Ripper is somewhere within the code. Before being able to give this information to Catherine's psyche, Paul Giamatti stops us, telling Quinlan that Catherine's brain activity since being admitted has had unusual spikes not related to her mind's rebuilding. Using the dates from the virtual herald of each Ripper murder, it looks like Catherine's spikes coincide precisely with the timing of each victim's death. Either the Ripper has made some connection through the secured hospital system, or somehow Catherine's psyche is leaking out. Both of these ideas are quickly shot down by Dr. Cable, but the data can't be a coincidence.
If I were you, Doc, I would check the system Catherine's interfaced with. It may not be as secure as you think.
You suggesting the Ripper's getting at her outside the system?
Or Catherine's getting out.
No, not in her condition. That's not possible.
You have a very limited sense of the possible, Doc.
What else was there to go on? Well, we do have an AI on a disc, so let's try that. Hamilton's AI doesn't recognize who's interacting with him, defaulting like it's his brother asking the questions. The AI tells Quinlan that someone had hired him to recreate Whitechapel. Remember, he was an acclaimed cyber architect, only realizing he had been working for the Ripper once the murders started to happen, but didn't know their identity because every time they interacted in cyberspace previously, the Ripper was disguised and switched genders. But Hamilton devised a backup plan, creating a cyberspace weapon designed not only to kill the Ripper, but to destroy the Whitechapel map and anything in it. As we leave, Hamilton's AI gives us the passcodes for the 3 separate wells for the weapon parts, warning us they're challenging to break through. Oh, I don't even want to talk about them right now. I almost forgot to mention that the bugs we placed in Burden and Magnata's offices have come up randomly. Apparently, Burden has been spying on us when at the hospital, giving any information over to Magnata. Falconetti and Magnata have been threatening to murder each other. All of this culminates with the 3 in Burden's office, where Falconetti assaults Claire, Magnata confirms he set up Falconetti on the Murder 1 charge, and Dr. Burden positing that the Ripper is one of the 2 men. Back with Soap, Quinlan explains how the Ripper has been killing his victims through cyberspace, but can't explain how Farley died since he wasn't decked in. Soap hypothesizes that the Ripper is altering the original code, making it like a timed bomb rather than instantaneous. Asking him if there was any way of protecting herself while in cyberspace, Soap points us in the direction of Kane, another cyberspace coder who is more on the dark side of the web. Before going into C-space for Hamilton's weapon and finding Kane, we question all 3 suspects again, 2 of which are having trouble with their shoulder. With the knowledge that all 3 were playing Ripper the night of Josie Dorset's death, there's a new line of questioning. What do they think happened that night? Falconetti claims that someone else altered the code, but he took the blame since he was the game master. Burden admits she still feels guilty for switching parts with Josie, and hints at Magnata being the killer to get back at her for rejecting him. And Magnata acknowledges the game, but still thinks we're the Ripper. The only outlier is with Falconetti, who, when accused of being the main suspect, reveals he's finished the Ripper image scan from Catherine's memory, and it's Magnata.
What's this?
When you're through barking up the wrong tree, take a look. That's the image we've been waiting for. I got sick of waiting for the experts, so I did it myself. That's what Powell saw before she was attacked. Pretty, huh? Ugly son of a bitch.
Before confronting the crooked detective, Quinlan goes after Hamilton's weapon and Kane's defenses. Kane had an awesome design that had me thinking about the original StarCraft, but oh god, his puzzles for getting the tech were brutal. Skull Zumbinis wasn't bad, just a lot of trial and error, but the hieroglyphics? This was impossible without a guide. At least Hamilton's challenges were shooter-based, and with all three parts of the weapon complete and our cyberspace defense tech up to date, we were ready to confront the Ripper. Yet something was bothering me. Back at the hospital, I checked in on the Ripper image, and it was still only at 73%. I know Falconetti is an expert when it comes to this stuff, but could he have doctored the image? Asking Dr. Cable about that possibility, he says Falconetti would probably be the only one who could fabricate such a fake. Quinlan then brings the image to Dr. Burden, asking her if she had any way of figuring out if the image was real. You'd think a highly skilled scientist and metacognitive expert would have some machine exactly for this, but nope. It's the newspaper that has the decoder. Oh shit, he was lying? Right as we're about to confront Falconetti over the falsified picture, Dr. Cable calls us in a panic, saying the true image of the Ripper is about to be transmitted and to get over to the hospital immediately.
Oh man, we got big problems. We lost the image. We almost had it and the screen went static. It's off the monitor, it's out of memory, it's probably gone forever. Burton's decked into the net, I can't reach her. Something's seriously wrong, Quinlan.
It's gotta be the Ripper, he's making his move.
I am making my move! Oh, don't be so surprised. You're in a room full of computers. Only 3 victims remain. And you, Quinlan. I hadn't planned upon killing you, but Mr. Nosy's gonna find out what it's really like to be on the inside.
The Ripper was the computer all along. Only joking. Quinlan decks into the Ripper's Whitechapel, as Magnata, Burden, Falconetti, and surprisingly, Catherine are already there. One final puzzle is between us and choosing who to use the weapon on. I alluded to this at the beginning, but it really is a word puzzle using Don't Fear the Reaper's lyrics. If you don't get it right, Quinlan dies, and that's the game. You do get a quick, unique cutscene, which was neat. Every suspect makes their last pleas to Quinlan not to blow them up. I enjoyed Catherine's the most as she goes, "I don't even know why I'm here." Yeah, she's been in a coma this whole time. From my perspective, it has to be Falconetti. From his secret well with the murder victims listed, his obsession over Jack the Ripper, framing Magnata with the falsified image, and knowing it was Stephanie who was killed last. It really pointed at him. It wasn't until writing the script for the video that I also noticed that when the Ripper is shot at Wofford's cottage, a knife is dropped, which can also be found in Falconetti's knife collection. With all of that against him, Quinlan is judge, jury, and executioner, using the weapon on Falconetti and hopefully ending the Ripper for good.
And so, unlike the first Ripper, this one didn't get away with it. Eddie was as violent as he had seemed, turning an obsession with a game into a nightmare as dark and terrible as the one that gripped Whitechapel over 150 years ago. I'm certain that in Eddie's mind the killings had a logic, but I didn't feel up to pondering the motives of a madman. Not today, anyhow.
Now, you might be asking, you said there were 4 endings. Who was the 4th suspect? This is where another level of appreciation for the game occurred. I had to look this up, but the 4th suspect was Catherine herself. During Act 3, you're able to ask her who Josie Dorset was, and the name sounded familiar because it was on the Kane and Catherine's apartment. The truth is that Josie Dorset was Catherine's mother. Catherine took her mother's maiden name, Powell, after her father left when she was just a teenager. That's why she wrote that her upbringing was very difficult and gave her motive to go after every web runner that was present during the Ripper game, who she thought was responsible for her mother's death, even if it could have been a random accident of malfunctioning code. And it makes more sense why the Ripper would only communicate through Quinlan if it was Catherine, because they worked so closely together, she could feed him any narrative she wanted. Even crazier is that if she was the Ripper in your playthrough, the last lines before entering Whitechapel confirm it, where she says there are 3 victims left. The player might think Quinlan is one of them, but if it was from Catherine's perspective, Magnotta, Burden, and Falconetti all deserve to die. It also makes sense if she spent all her life dedicated to learning about cyberspace and her mother's legacy, trying to be as good, if not a better Decker than Magnotta or Falconetti. We wondered why she wasn't killed by the Ripper's attack, but if she had orchestrated it so she could still use cyberspace while in the coma, it literally gives her the perfect alibi. I was so blown away by this possible ending, and really wish I had gotten it organically. Regardless, Falconetti was our Ripper, and Ripper the game was a fantastic experience in so many ways. Point-and-click adventure games aren't for everyone. I completely understand. Viewing this as an interactive movie might make it a little easier to digest, but for me personally, I couldn't get enough of it. I'd love to hear if you played it and what your ending was, or if you hadn't had the chance, what you thought of the playthrough. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I've had this on my games list for 2 years now and never thought I would be able to do it justice, so I hope I did. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, it helps out a lot, and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. As always, talk to you next time, and all the best.
Companies usually squeeze everything they can out of their successful titles. But Warp Space re-released everything except this one title. Something must have happened.